Hi, Peter Charles here, and in my last video I put this Voigtlander 50mm f1.2 lens on 3 different sensors to see if it would resolve those sensors. This time around I'm going to pit it up against the Mark II version of the 16 to 55 f2.8 Fujifilm zoom. So let's check it out and see what results we get. Okay, when I shot the previous video using this 50mm Voigtlander f1.2, I put it in front of the 16 megapixel sensor that's in this XT1. I put it on my X Pro 3 with a 26 megapixel sensor, and I also used the XH2 with its 40 megapixel sensor. And if you recall the results, and I'll put the video up here in the cards, that the results, the resolution was the best with the 16 megapixel sensor and was the worst with the 40 megapixel sensor. And I got requests in the comments, well, try a lens that resolves the 40 megapixel sensor. Can it actually resolve it properly? So we're going to run this test again, only I'm going to be adding in the 16 to 55 f2.8 Mark II version of that zoom lens. And the thing about this particular zoom, I'm going to compare it to the 16 megapixel sensor and the 40 with the 50. I'm not going to bother with the 26. So the methodology remains the same. I took a picture of my bookcase and we magnify the symbol in the middle of the spine of one book. And I examine them 2 ways. I examine them with the image at the same size for 16 and 26 and 40 megapixel. And then I magnify it till the point it pixelates. And I try to see if it still stays sharp as it approaches pixelation. And that's how I'm making my judgment as to which is the sharpest and which aperture is the sharpest. And I do comparisons across the sensors using the same aperture, and I also do it linearly as well, going from, in this case, F2.8 to F22. So let's take a look at the graph and see what kind of results we get. Okay, here the blue line is the 16 to 55 2.8 zoom. The green line is the 50mm Voigtlander on the 16 megapixel sensor. And the gray line is the 50mm 1.2 on the 40 megapixel sensor. And you can see it's pretty dramatic. The 16 to 55 2.8 zoom is clearly better than the other 2 options. It resolves the 40 megapixel sensor quite well. When I magnify it to pixelation, it stays sharp right up until the point it starts to pixelate. So we know it's using that sensor. And as you can tell by the graph, at its worst, it's as good as the 50 at its best. So when we look at these results, obviously the 16 to 55 is optically superior. It will resolve more lines in the detail than the 50mm f1.2. Even when the 50 is at its best, and this is at its worst, it's resolving about the same, especially on the 40 megapixel sensor. So the bottom line with this is that the greater the pixel density of a sensor, the more critical it is to match it properly with a lens that will resolve that sensor. And I mean, obviously, if this kind of resolution and sharpness is not important to you, well, you can put any lens you want on your camera. But if you're looking for maximum sharpness, maximum quality, you're going to have to pay attention to what lens you put on, because it does make a difference, as we saw in the graph. When you jump up to a lens that is made for the 40 megapixel sensor, it does a great job of resolving it, and you know, it makes a huge difference versus a lens that is more, shall we call it, general purpose, built to serve a variety of sensors and a variety of cameras. I mean, you look at, you know, if you're getting Sigma, Tamron, Viltrox, all the independent manufacturers, they've got to build those lenses for a variety of sensors and a variety of camera bodies. So, you know, I don't think they will compare as well to a lens that's specifically made to work with this 40 megapixel sensor. So give that some thought when you go out to buy lenses, and also keep that in mind when you're doing your editing and you're looking at it saying, well, this isn't that sharp. You know, what's the problem? Well, it's probably because your camera lens, your lens doesn't match the sensor in the camera. So give that some thought the next time you're working through these issues. Cheers.